Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Lamed Ches in Baba Kama, as we learn for Chanukah based on Sunnah Masar Shivya and a Chanukah Sameach to everybody. From the top of Lamed Ches, the second line. The Mishnah said yesterday the discussion was about Hegdish, and that was a little bit more complicated. Today's discussion is a little bit easier. A shore of a Jew that injured, gored a shore of a goy, Kanani, is potter. You don't have to pay it all. We'll see why. However, if a Kanani gores a Jewish shore, he has to pay in full. There's no dispensation for a time that he pays half. So it seems quite unfair. A Jew's animal is gored by a goy, he must pay in full. If a Jew's animal damaged a goy's, he's entirely potter. Amri manavshach. What's the spar over here? The pasuk says v'chigov shor as shor re'eu. Pasuk says v'chigov shor ish as shor re'eu. His colleague, his associate, his friend, meaning another Jew. Pasuk says, then the rules of Tam apply. That sounds only because if he's your friend, he's your fellow Jew. So again, if you say that's dafka, so what if the rule of paying for your animals? You could say that, if my animal damaged your animal, what do you want? They're in the street there. It's not my fault, whatever. But if you say that you have to pay chatzi nezek to a Jew, why shouldn't you have to pay to a goy? If you say, because a goy is not re'eu, then the other way it should work also. If a goy is damaged yours, he also shouldn't have to pay. If it's dafka, that it's definite that you have to pay that way. Re'eu means dafka only, meaning only if he's a fellow Jew. So Yisrael nami lifter. If he damages if a guy's animal damages your animal, a Jew's animal, he should also be potter. The pasuk only applies to one Jew's animal damaging another Jew's animal. And if we don't care, Re'eu just means your associate, your friend, but anybody, any other human being. I feel the Yisrael. So a Jew should also have to pay for a guy's. Goyim wouldn't like this law, right? If we injure theirs, we don't have to pay. If they injure ours, they have to pay in full. Pasuk says, as Hashem stood and measured, he took a good view of the land. He saw Vayater Goyim, and he freed them. Now, Vayater could also mean like he scared them, he shook them up. What does that mean? We'll see. Hashem mitzvah shikabulay. He saw that the Bnei Noach, the Goyim, had accepted the 7 mitzvahs of Kivin Shelo Kaimu, since they didn't even fulfill those 7. So Hashem got up and said, you know what? Their money is free, meaning we're going to be matzah, we're going to make it hefker. So even though technically you might owe them the money, too bad, we're matzah, their money, you don't have to pay them and they have to pay you. The Jews can get their money, but they don't have to give them money. Rabbi Yochanan, we'll see what this lashon of Vayata. Vayata means like he made it, he freed it, he exempted them from, exempted their money from being owed to the Jews and vice versa. Pardon? Censored. Halal Sapir. Yeah, I guess so. Because why did they? Maybe it was censored in some editions. I don't know. It's possible that it was, but we'll see. Yeah. It could be. We'll see a story like that in a few minutes. That they didn't take it out. Maybe because we're only talking about the Canaan. Maybe they didn't say. Usually with their Canaan, they usually are censored more when it says over the Avodah Zarah. So that's what was censored more. Like the Christians, maybe the Canaan, they didn't interpret it that way. Maybe it wasn't as offensive. There's another pasuk, which is associated with Har Sinai in the Midbar. Hashem Hofia, he displayed or he showed up. Mehar Paran, meaning Rashi explains that's when Hashem offered the Torah to all the other umos and they didn't accept it. Paran Hofia Mamon Israel. Hofia meaning he exposed. Hofia means to show or to expose. He exposed their money and gave it to the Jews. You see a price potter. Just like we saw in the Mishnah, that if a Jew damages a guy, he's your potter. As we see in the Brisa also brings down this pasuk. Shenemar says by Omad by Yimodid Arts, Hashem took measure of the land, by Yater Goyim, and he freed their money. Omer, another pasuk is Hafiyah Mehar Para. So in the first Gemara we had that Ravu explained one way, Rabbi Yochanan explained another way. But that's Here the Brisa says both psukim, both the pasuk first pasuk in Chabakuk, and the second pasuk of Afiyah Mehar Parim, which is at the end of Parim. Afiyah Mehar Parim. My God, what do we need the second pasuk? Maybe the first pasuk we need for two different drushes, not the drusha that Hashem freed their money to the Jews, gave to the Jews, and the Jews didn't have to pay them. Maybe it's for the drushes of Rav Masna and Rav Yosef, which we'll see momentarily. So if maybe we need the pasuk of Ayimodei Aris, pasuk Chabakuk for those other drushes, which we'll see. So therefore, Tashma, we bring the pasuk of Fiyah Mehar Param, we parno Fiyah Mon Yisrael from Paran. Hashem exposed their money and gave it to the Jews. My Rav Masna, what are the drushes of Rav Masna and Rav Yosef? Rav Masna, Rav Masna, Amad Veimeros. What is you that pasuk for? Hashem stood and took measure of the land. Ra Vayater Goyim. What does it mean? My Ra Shev Mitzvah. So he saw that they the Bnei Moched were commanded the seven. See, in the first Russia was he saw the seven mitzvahs that they were makabel. The Girsa also maybe a Girsa see the Shita Shem Mitzvahs Mash B'Dachol. Yeah, that is the first Russia was that they accepted them. But here's the same idea: is that in Istanbul they had to keep the seven mitzvahs. That they were commanded the seven mitzvahs and they didn't accept them. They didn't accept those mitzvahs. And one of the mitzvahs is all the mitzvahs is, and by the seven mitzvahs, the punishment for any of them, whether it's stealing or establishing courts, whatever, is death. So I saw that Bnei Yisrael that Hashem had given Bnei Noach seven mitzvahs, and they didn't fulfill them. Amad the Hegla Osam Me'al Masa. So he darshans, or Masa says what the punishment was for not observing the mitzvahs was not that their money was abandoned to the Jews, but rather Hashem had exiled them from their lands. The Rashi brings down Psukim, going Kaftor, Mayotzmi Kaftor, going Seir, Hayoshim, B'Seir, Yoshvachor. In other words, that not only were the Jews exiled, as we saw later on, but Goyim were also exiled from country to country. My Mashmad Hai Bayater Lishnadekli. How do you know? It says Hashem saw what they did. They didn't observe the seven mitzvahs, and he exiled them. Where do you see that the lashon of Bayater is a lashon of language of exile? It says Bayater Goyim. It says here Bayater Goyim. And it says in the pasuk they're talking about that you shouldn't eat the different shrutzim, the four-legged animals. It says lenater b'hamar. It's that these different shrutzim that they use lenater b'ham. What do these animals do with their legs? They use the legs to jump around, to jump on land. So lenater is also a lesson of jumping or exiling it from place to place. That was the drasha that Rav Masna used for the pasuk in Chabakuk that says Vayater Goyim. My Rav Yosef uses it for different drasha. Rav Yosef, similar. Hashem stood and took measure of the land. Hashem mitzvah shekel v'aleim Bnei Noach. We saw them since the Bnei Noach accepted the Lokim and they didn't accept them. Amadi tiralahem. They didn't accept they didn't fulfill the mitzvahs that they had accepted. So he was matzah for them. He says, okay, you're not mitzvah anymore. So the Gemara says, the Skuri, ask them what they profited by not observing the seven mitzvahs. Hashem says, okay, you don't have to keep them anymore. So they profited by that. They weren't responsible. So you see that the sinner gains. Rashi points out it doesn't mean that they won't be punished. They will punishment. They will. They're not going to be absolved of punishment for not observing them, but they're not going to get the schar for mitzvah ba'osa. They're not going to get the full schar as a person. Even if they're mekayim them, they won't get the full schar. What do you mean they won't get schar? Even a guy who keeps mitzvah, even a guy who learns Torah, it doesn't mean he keeps all the mitzvahs. It means a guy who learns Torah Shiur Kohen Gadol. It's like a Kohen Gadol, meaning he gets schar. Asher Yaseh Osam Ha'adam B'chayban. Pasuk says about the Torah that if a person does them ha'adam, and he will live by them. It doesn't say Jews, that basically the three sections of Jews who are Makayim them, but it says Adam, Ela Adam. Even a guy learns Torah, he gets schar like a Kohen Gadol. So you see that. So what do you mean over here that even if they Makayim, they won't be Mekav schar? Amri Em Kav Maleim Schar Kamitzvosa. They're not going to get the same schar as a person who's commanded and fulfills it. He's going to get schar like a person who's not mitzvah. Like let's say a woman who just to give an example, a woman who's part from mitzvah seishes Ryan Grama, but if she fulfills the mitzvah, she gets schar, but not as much as a person who's mitzvah. Yoser Mishain himself, a person who's commanded and does it because he has a responsibility. He is a yoke on him. If he does the mitzvahs when he's commanded to do them, gets more schar than a person who's not mitzvahs. You might say, well, if I'm volunteering, it's even more, but you don't have the same responsibility. The person who's responsible to do them gets more mitzvah than a person who doesn't. So what Rabbi Yosef Darshan from the pasuk was that Bayatam, he says, okay, you're not keeping the mitzvahs. You know what? I'm not going to give you schar anymore as if you were commanded to do it because you don't do it. If you do it, okay, you'll get schar. Not as much schar as a person who's commanded to do it. But like Rashi points out, they weren't absolved of punishment because the fact is they were commanded. They were commanded originally. So because they didn't keep them, Hashem put their command on a lesser level. It wasn't like the mitzvah of osa, like any mitzvah of osa, but they're still punished for not observing them.
The argument that we don't. Yesterday, we had the argument that the base fine for Shoshanada is Nezek Shalom.
Right.
And then there's for a time you get a discount.
Right.
So why do we apply that argument here that everybody should be doing, but the Jews get a discount?
Right.
For that, but we don't have that.
Yeah. So here,
right. Easy argument.
Right. So we'll see there. By the Kutim we do have some an argument like that, but by Goyim we don't have it because he's makbid on Shoreyehu. At the end we came out yesterday also that Shoreyehu. Right. Rashi gives you the full discount. Here it's the full discount. We're not talking about there's the whole the Re'eu, it says by Chatzinesek, right? Yeah, by Chatzinesek. So here he said that doesn't need, so therefore it doesn't apply at all. In other words, yesterday we said that you're saying that the full thing applied in general, but the Re'eu was on everybody. Right. So here the Re'eu is dafka for the whole thing. It's different than the Gemara yesterday. You're right. In Echanami. But we're saying really that I think what we're saying is that they were really entitled. They would have been entitled. Re'eu does include them. Re'eu does include them. Everything includes them. Should include them, but because they didn't observe, Hashem fined them. Hashem basically took it away. We're saying it took away everything. In other words, there would have been a discount for half, and there would have been nezek shalom. What we're saying is that Re'eu is dafka. Okay, Re'eu's dafka is applied to Jews. Still, you could say Re'eu's dafka for the goyim, but still for Hegdish, it's not. There's no Re'eu over there. Right. Came out, even if you say there is Re'eu, but there's no Hu Ba'alav. There's no Ba'alav over there. There's no owners, right? There's no owner over there. So you could say Hegdish is different. Here, it is a person, and the Gemara is really saying that it would apply to them. The rules would apply. Chatzi Nesek and Nesek Shalom, except Hashem fined them. That's what happened, as we're going to see by the Kutim later on. Tanrabanim. The Romans had sent two officers, Eitzel Chachmei Yisrael, to the Jews because they suspected them of mistreating the Goyim, as we see up here. Teach us your Torah. They taught them the Torah once, twice, thrice. And when they left Amrulem, these officials said to the rabbis of the Chachmei Yisrael, we were very careful. We checked through your Torah. The Emesu, your Torah is truthful. Except for this one problem we have. You say that if a Jew's animal gores that of a goy, putter, but Israel, again, it's a concept, but that's what your Torah says. But manavshach, again, it's a fine, but it's already written in the Torah. They're saying is that you can't apply the regular rules the way we read the Torah, because the way we read the Torah, yes, they would be included too, except Hashem find them. That's how we don't have a pasuk for showing that. We don't have a pasuk explain. Yesterday we talked about basis. Is it Re'eu? Is it not Re'eu? Who had Ba'alav? Here we're saying, you know what? We don't understand what's going on over here. Why is it that way? And by the way, it doesn't say that in the Torah. We checked the whole Torah, meaning they must have taught the Talmud, the Torah Shabbat Peh too, because it doesn't say in the Torah that Goyim are Potter, unless you say that Re'eu was Dafka. Re'eu was Dafka, unless you want to say that Re'eu was Dafka, but then you have the problem that you're raising. Re'eu was Dafka maybe on Chatzi Nesek and not Nesek Shalom. Here it sounds like it's a Zera that Hashem punished them. Right? So Manavshach, Re'eu Dafka, I feel the Knani Kinach Yisrael lifter. If Re'eu was Dafka, it doesn't apply to Goyim, so we shouldn't have to pay you either. We shouldn't have to pay you Jews. But we're not going to rat on you. We're not going to go back to the Romans. We like your Torah, but that part we're going to leave out. We're not going to mention that. And Rashi points out, look at the second last Rashi on the page. They didn't explain the reason. That it should be like a man. They didn't want to tell them that. They didn't want to say, well, the reason is because your money is hefker to us, right? Your money is hefker. That's the reason. It's not based on Re'ehu, right? It's not based on because if it's Re'ehu, we shouldn't pay you either. The answer is that it's not really based on Re'ehu. It's based on the fact that Hashem made a knas that you're going to be hefker. So that's really like Torah Shabbat. You don't see that in the pasuk. It's based on the pasuk of Fiyah Meharan or Vayatar Goyim. It's based on these other drushes. We don't see it in the pasuk. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, another story here. Rav Shmuel Yehuda Shchiva Bar. So Shmuel Yehuda, his Bar Yehuda, his his daughter died. Amalei Rabbanan, the Rabbanan said, Leula, Kum Nezel Nechem, let's go be Menachem Abel. Amalahu. So Ula said, Ma'is Lagav Nechem to why I'm going to go bother with you rabbis, the Nechem of the Goyim, the Gitifu. It's like blasphemy. Because they say, when they're Menachem, they say, Ma'yef Shalom Eber, what could have been done? Maybe we should have done something. Maybe he could have gone to the hospital. Maybe he could have done something. Ma'yef Shalom Abdi. But if it could have been something, it would have been done. In other words, if the Rabban Shalom desired that they should die, what's the point of talking about it afterwards? Well, maybe we could have done this. Maybe we could have done that. That's Ratzon Hashem. It's close to blasphemy the way you Babylonians talk when you're Menachem Abel. So, he didn't want to go with them, but he went himself. Ula went himself there by himself. Amalei said like this. This isn't much of a comfort either. He says, Moshe, don't harass the Goyim and don't provoke them milchama. Don't provoke Moab into a war. What Moshe was about to start a war with them without permission from God. Why did Hashem have to tell him, don't make a war with Moab? I don't know. Moshe darshan the kal v'chomer. He said like this, Amar, Uma midyanim shelo bo elazar es Moab. Midyanim only came to assist Moab. Amar the Torah said, Sroras midyanim, harass them, v'yikisam and smite them. That's what Hashem said to Moshe about the midyanim. Moab matzmam, Moabim themselves, lo kol shkein. Certainly, you should destroy them. So that's what Moshe thought he was supposed to go to war. He made a kal v'chomer. If the midyanim, which are only coming to assist Moab, Hashem said, go beat them. So certainly Moab himself. But your mind, you and I are not of the same mind. I don't have a drasha that way. You're right. You have a kal v'chomer, but I look at it differently. From Moab, I have, and from Ammon, I have two beautiful doves that are going to come out of there eventually. Rusa Moabiyah, came from Moab, and Naamah, Ammonis came from Ammon, was Naamah, wife of Shlomo. Because of two simple doves. Hashem had mercy on these two nations. In other words, each nation only was going to produce one beautiful dove from which Jews would emanate. And because of that, Hashem saved each of those nations. Didn't destroy them. Bito Sharevi, the daughter of you, meaning this rabbi who was Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda. He says, your daughter, if somebody good would have eventually come out of her, in other words, even from Goyim, that they were going to produce a wonderful woman. Each of these two nations were going to produce a wonderful woman. Hashem saved the whole nation. If your daughter would have been somebody worthy was going to come out of her, Hashem would have certainly saved her too. Obviously, there was no future. And I don't know if that's much of a nechama, but that's what he said. Amar Abchia Bar Abba. So again, this gets into the idea of Ammon and Moab being, having some schutz because of the one we're going to come out from them. Amar Abchia Bar Abba Yochanan. Hashem does not withhold of its pride the reward of anybody. Even the schar of speaking nicely, of a good lashon, right? Of a good language. The story with Lot's two daughters, right? The first one slept with the older one they thought nobody was that the whole world was gone, no one's going to reproduce. So they got their father drunk, and one slept with her. The Bechira slept with her the first night, and the younger one slept with the second night. And the Bechira, the Komer Moab, she called her son Moab, which means Me'av from the father. Not a nice way to talk. Guess what? Guess what, child? Your grandfather is your father, right? Dilubchira the Kamer Moab, Amakash Baruch Moshe, Al Tatzaras Moab, Al Tiskar Milchama. Don't harass Moab and don't provoke them into a war. Milchama Hudalo, don't start a war, Hangari Abadu, but you could force them into servitude. Rashi says, to force them to bring the troops water and food, etc., like that. You could force them into obligations, into servitude. Seira, the younger one, the Kamra Ben Mami, she wasn't as obvious. She didn't say that her son came from her father, which indeed he did, but she just said the son of my nation, Ben Ami. In fact, it's a modern Hebrew last name. Amalek Kadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe said, "V'karaftemul b'nei Amon," and you should approach them. Al Tatzurim Bal Tiskar Bam Klal. Al Tiskar Bal Tiskar Bam Klal. In other words, don't provoke them. Don't harass or set them. Al Tiskar Bam. I think the pasuk ends there. Meaning, didn't say don't provoke them into war. Don't harass them at all. You shouldn't even you shouldn't provoke them out. Shouldn't force them into servitude, into finding water. Okay, so this Russia was brought down because we talked about the Bechira and the Tzeira, about the nice lashon, and that's brought down also because of the people emanated from the Goyim, etc. Okay, so that was that story. Okay, so now the Gemara goes on. Even though this was like an Aveira Lidvar mitzvah, right? An Aveira Lishma. These girls did not mean to commit incest with their father Stam. They thought they were doing a good thing by recreating the world, that the world was going to end. They thought the whole world had been destroyed. They didn't realize it was only the area that they lived in. So you should rush to do a mitzvah, get a chance to do it right away. Because of one night that the older daughter went first and slept with Lot before the younger daughter, she went to do a mitzvah, even it was an Aveir, was veil Lishma. So because she preceded her sister by one day, so her progeny entered the Bnei Yisrael 4 generations before. Why? Because Ruth's son was Oved. That was his name, Oved, or Abed in English, right? Or Arabic, Abed, Yisha, and then you have Oved, Yishai, David, Bishlomo. In other words, there were 4 generations of those were the 4. Obed, whose son was Yishai, whose son was David, whose son was Shlomo. Those are 4 generations that came out of Ruth Hamoaviyah before Bilu Tzeira, the younger daughter of Lot, Ad Rechavam, the son of Shlomo. In other words, 4 generations later was when the people of Ammon, who came from the second daughter, entered Bnei Yisrael. The Siv, Shem Imo Naama Hamonis, and the name of his mother, of Rechavam's mother, was Naama Hamonis. Tanrabanim. So till now we've been talking about a straight up goy, right? And a Kanani. A Kanani is a language for any of the goyim living in Eretz Yisrael. So any of the goyim. So again, the Mishnah had said that if a Jew's animal gores a goy's potter, a Kanani that gores a Jew's doesn't make an imsi, you have to pay. And as we said, it's a knas because they didn't follow the Shev Mitzvahs by Noach, and Hashem was mafkir their mammon entirely. Even though, like you say, like Mike says, it's possible that Re'eu could mean any other person. However, it's possible Hashem was mafkir the mammon. So what about a kuti? A kuti is always a question whether they goyim or not. They were the Kuthians who they lived in Eretz Yisrael, and they came from a different land. And the question was whether they were Megai or were they gay or Iroya. Sometimes they were forced by the Hashem set the lions upon them, and they forcibly became Jews, but they didn't really mean it. Or were they Jews? So the Bryce says brings down 2 opinions. Shoshal kuti potter. Again, if you injure a goy, kuti is your potter type. Kuti shal Yisrael, not like a goy who has to pay full amount, but tam misham chatzinezek, umur misham nezek shalom. So if a kuti is considered like a Jew because he pays half for chatzinezek and muad nezek shalom, so that's like a Jew. But on the other hand, he's like a goy that a Jew doesn't have to pay him at all. Rav Meir Omer shosha kuti potter. Totally potter. So Rav Meir treats the kuti like the guy we saw in the Mishnah, that a guy pays full, a Jew pays nothing. Rav Meir kutim geros, that means to say Rav Meir holds that the kutim are like goyim. They were not really proper. They didn't properly convert. For a minute, call it sumim. Sumim is a ketem is a cloth or any baguette of some sort that's stained with menstrual blood. Now, what happened was that these were tamei. Tamei, not the oraisa, but the tamei drabanan, because tamei the rice is going on, it's a liquid of dam. But but midrabanan, the rabbi said the tamei, and the Jews, basically, Jewish women would hide them. They didn't leave them, strewn about in the street. They would hide them. So if it came from Rekem, if you found the ketem in Rekem, that's the place that's mostly goyim, the Torah. Again, goyim are tamei drabanan. The midraisa, they're not tamei, right? There's no such thing as a nida of a goy. Nidas are the only one, as we said, the only ones who are really tamei min Torah are Jews. When they're alive, are Jews, right? Everybody else, animals and goyim, are not tamei when they're alive. And this that their tummy is only a drabanan to stay away from them, but they're not really tummy. So which is a town that's mostly goyim the Torah. Rabbi Yehuda matame, Neishem Gerim. Who knows? No, Rabbi Yehuda says they're Gerim. The people who live in Rekem are Gerim. The Toim, they're Gerim over there. They're proper Jews, but they don't follow the rules. They make mistakes. They live the way they were before they were Megayer. They don't keep all the laws. Maybe a Nachrim, if it comes from Goyim, then they're Torah, as we said. Rekem is mostly, we said Rekem is mostly Goyim, so they're Torah. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, Rekem is mostly Gerim, and they simply don't follow the rules. But they're Jews, and therefore their Tamim are Tamei. Now, he says, if those of Goyim are Torah, and the Jews keep them, don't leave them exposed, so who's their Tamei? So here we say, if it's from the Jews or from the Kutim, Rav Meir's matame. Why is Rav Meir matame? Rav Meir says that they are tamei. Racham say they're Torah because if they're goyim, then they're Torah because they're goyim. If they're Jews, the Jews don't leave them around. So if you took it from a private place, you found it in the street, it can't be from a Jew. And if it's from a goy, it's Torah anyway. Rav Meir says no. Rav Meir says that if it's from the Kutim, they kar tamei. Al Maksava Rav Meir Kutim Geri Emerson. Why are they tamei? Because they're Gerim. They were proper Gerim, but they don't leave the law. They don't observe proper tznius, and they take their stuff and they leave it around. Rashi says, where we are says, he says, Tahara and Deman Tameim, but that's in Hachim. They Yisrael be a Goyim Tameim, but in some Bar Yisrael, but Malcolm Hefker, they're Torah. Because al kismei and lafkirin and they hide them away. In other words, if you find it in the street, it can't be from a Jew. Some they find it among the kutim, Meir's matame, because they are not so careful and they might leave them in the street. And the Chum say Torah because the Jews aren't suspected of leaving in the street. But you see from here that the Meir says if it came from Meir says kutim, if it's possible it came from among kutim and it was in the street. It is tamei. Now that means that the kutim are not goyim, that they're just Jews who don't follow rules of tznius. So since you say that Rav Meir holds that dam kutim is tamei, so he holds that gerim. So how could Rav Meir say that if a Jew's animal gores theirs, you're putter, and if they gores you have to pay in full like a goy. So Rav Meir says bein tam bein mu misham nezik shalom. So it means Rav Meir holds that they are goyim, but here he says that kutim are Jews, because he says if you find a ketem from among places where there are kutim, that it's tamei. That means that they're Jews. Rav Meir says tamei. Mi beina kutim. Rav Meir says matame. Why? Because Rav Meir also geremus. Amar vu knasu shekanas Rav Meir b'monim shlei tamu bahem. You're right. They really are Jews, but because they didn't follow the rules of Judaism, the laws of Judaism, Rav Meir made a knas and made them effectively like goyim, so that you shouldn't mix with them. Like Yitamu, he doesn't mean to be pure, but you shouldn't mix with them. So, and Rashi points out that he gave him a knas bigger than that of the Tanakama. The Tanakama also was. The Tanakama says that if a kuti damages your shore, if his shore damages your shore, he pays chatzi nezek for a tam and nezek shalem for a mu'ed. But if yours damages his, you're potter. Again, how does that work? If they're Jews, so you should also have to pay chatzi nezek. The answer is the Tanakama also holds that there's a knas because they didn't follow the rules. We don't want you to mix with them too much. So if your animal damaged his, you don't have to pay anything. Don't go to court with them. Don't pay anything. Stay away from them. Don't mingle. If his damaged yours, okay, you got chatzi nezik. Rav Meir, so it's a knas because they weren't observant. Rav Meir gave them a bigger knas. Not only don't you have to pay them, but if they damage you, they have to pay a full amount. So Rav Meir and the Tanakhama both hold that they are Jews, but he gave them a knas, just like Rosh Hashanah gave a knas to the goyim and said because you don't keep the 7 mitzvahs enough, you have to pay in full. Rav Meir gave the same knas to the kutim, but they did hold that Rav Meir that the kutim are Jews. They were guy properly. Maser Rav Zera, they'll now knas. Which girls, if you rape them, they have a knas. Even of course a Jewish girl, but abal mamzeres, some of the mamzeres or nesina. Those were people that the David HaMelech brought in, but they were never really accepted as Jews. He brought them as workers. It seems like like whatever Thai workers, Thailand or whatever Sri Lankan workers, and they're not really Jews. Balakutis and akutis, these are like knas. If because from if Meir holds that in order not to intermingle with them, Rav Meir says we gave a knas and we said that you don't have to pay them anything, and they don't have to. They have to pay you in full, but you don't have to pay them anything. If you say Rav Meir gave them a knas, why don't you also say a knas here? So you shouldn't mix with them. You should also say there's a knas that you shouldn't have to pay if a Jewish person raped the kutis, you also shouldn't have to pay the knas, so that you shouldn't mix with them, don't go to court with them, etc. Don't intermingle with them. So that you shouldn't have. It's not fair that the sinner, the rapist, should get away without having to pay anything. So on the side of him, so give the money to the tzedakah box, like we had the other day. Put the money in and give it to the aniyim. If you say that the rapist has to give the money to the aniyim, who's going to claim it? Yeah, every ani who comes and says, "Give me the 50 shekels," saying, "I'm giving it to somebody else." So there's no plaintiff over here who's going to claim the money. So because of that, we can't say just give the money to an ani because nobody will claim it. Everybody comes with a claim, so I'm going to give it to somebody else. So the rapist will get out of it. So even though Rav Meir holds that we constant them, we gave them a knas in order not to mingle with them, that you don't have to pay them your obligation if you're sure damages is. According to me, you don't have to pay anything at all. But in the case of a rapist, if you raped one of their girls, you do have to pay shloichat niska, so the rapist shouldn't get off scot-free.
Why can't it be general fund?
Nobody will claim it. Now, why doesn't the Bezdin make a claim? It only works when there's a claim. In other words, the Bezdin doesn't send out their own prosecutor. It's not like there's a chief prosecutor who makes a claim rapist. It's only if somebody claims. If a man's daughter was raped, he's got to make a claim against the rapist. There's no prosecution automatically. It doesn't work that way because it's between two people, right? It's not like
there's no plaintiff.
There's no plaintiff. Right?
There's no plaintiff.